Welcome to Transforming Us podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Tamara. We're trauma-informed relationship coaches and old friends here to discuss common patterns and what leads us to paths of security.
You know, people are feeling overwhelmed and disconnected in their painful relationships, which often leads to mental health crises.
We want to share some new ideas and practices to help you cultivate curiosity, compassion, and to redeem the patterns in your relationships, starting with yourself.
Join us on this journey of transforming us. Grab a cup of coffee and let's dive in. Friends, welcome back to the Transforming Us podcast. I am so excited to share with you a new friend of mine who has so much to offer us. I met Reverend Clare Loughrige officially 2 weeks ago, but I've known about her work for almost 2 years, her and her husband, Scott. I just finished their Emotions of the Soul Enneagram training certification last week. But let me first say, Reverend Clare Loughrige is a contemplative activist, a spiritual director, an Enneagram teacher who works to invite others into lives shaped by interior freedom and faithful presence. She is author of Motions of the Soul and co-author of Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram. She's an IEA, International Enneagram Association accredited professional and director of an IEA accredited training program. Clare is also the founder and principal of Crossroads Soul Resources School of Spiritual Direction and serves as a subject matter expert for the Enneagram Collaborative Global, which we recently had Dr. Mary on the podcast. So since 1991, Clare has been the co-founder, lead pastor of Crossroads Church and Ministries in Marshall, Michigan. Her pastoral calling is woven with justice advocacy, including work addressing human trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence. Through spiritual practices and the wisdom of the Enneagram, she accompanies individuals and leaders towards their God-given design and deepest longings. Clare is a grateful mom of 4, a grandmother to 8, and has been married to her high school sweetheart and beloved partner, Scott, since 1981.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah. So we are so thankful to have you here. Clare, welcome.
Thank you, Jess. I'm really glad that we found each other a couple of weeks ago, and I got to find out about the work you're doing here at Transforming Us and the important integration of attachment patterns with Enneagram styles is really significant work you're doing. So I'm glad to be with you.
Well, I am also glad to be with you. And I very much enjoyed my training last week with so many wonderful souls learning about this also very integrative work with the Harmony Triads, which I know you'll say a lot more about.
Well, and I look forward to reading your papers as we get ready to certify you. I look forward to reading your Harmony autobiography and your discernment paper. And that's just, that's the best when you get a glimpse into someone's own integrative reality as the light bulbs start turning on.
Yeah, I look forward to digging into all of that. I've already started, but
yeah. All right.
So,
of course you have.
One of the questions you asked us multiple times last week that I really appreciated that I would like to ask of you is, what is it like to be you, Clare?
Well, that makes me so happy that you took that home with you, as a part of the work that we do. Because many times when we're talking about Enneagram styles, we can think we know what it's like to be someone just because we know their style. Yeah. And so what you may have learned about me last week, what it's like to be me, I'm the youngest of 6 children, born to a Sicilian father who was the primary caregiver, and got married at such a young age to a person who has helped form my interiority. And maybe we'll talk about that later also. And so what it's like to be me is I feel safe, I feel held, I feel connected, I feel deeply grateful that in a moment where a world feels like it's on fire, that it's so divided, that there's a way to harmonize in the moment, right? And that the practicing continues because nobody is ever done. And so moment by moment, um, I'm being invited to say, okay, Claire, what is it like to be you right now? How's your nervous system? Are you being activated in this moment, in this article, in this whatever it is? So the great prophet of the Doobie Brothers sang minute by, right? Minute by minute. I keep holding on, right? So the minute by minute, what it's like to be us is a practice that I want to keep practicing all the days of my journey so that I can say, well, I might have been fine 10 minutes ago, but what's it like to be me right now?
Mm.
So right now it's great sitting here with Jess. I'm not looking at my social media feed. I'm not looking at my email. So I don't have a lot of activation happening. But I'll be willing to pay attention as soon as something shows up.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, and I love how as you talk about what it's like to be you is that asking yourself, those questions as you're answering, and it includes a trauma informed approach and
Mm,
really what's going on with my nervous system, how am I being activated, what's my environment like, things like that. So
mhm,
I know that's been part of all that you teach, and I appreciate that as well, just in helping people become whole. I said a lot about your professional life, but is there anything else you want to share about your family
mhm.
or the work you're doing right now?
Well, I would say that, those people that are close to everyone affect the way they're doing their work. I am mother of eight, the oldest 21 and the youngest one. I feel deeply grateful that all of my kids live uh, within an hour and a half, and most of them live within 5 minutes. So the beauty of being with my kids and grandkids continues to form my professional life because I can't teach something that I'm not practicing at home. There's a deep sense of integrity that I want to be Claire and Amma to the grands and say, yeah, I tell so many stories that feel appropriate for the moment in what we're talking about because my family life is a petri dish in all of its perfection and imperfection. And so I'm really grateful that I don't bifurcate my professional life from my personal life. It's how is this person named Claire showing up in the world in a way that is true?
Mm. Mm. In a way that is true. Yeah. And I think that becoming your truest self is at the heart of what this type of Enneagram work is really
Mhm.
about. Yeah, I love that.
Well, and Jess, from being with us last week, we talk a lot about remembering yourself. And there are parts of us that we may dismember,
Mm,
that are dismissed or undernourished or undervalued. And this remembering of our inherent greatness. In our faith tradition, we would say, made in God's own image. And when you're born, you're hot from the hand of God, right?
yeah.
And that there is whether it's the wound, or as our friend, would say, the kid life crisis, or the unconscious childhood message causes you to dismember a part of you that is true. We want to just keep saying we have an opportunity to return to what is most true.
Hmm.
Most true. You are made in God's very own image. And when we can remember that, we show up in ways
Hmm.
that are whole and true and
Yeah,
graced for other people.
yeah. And I think too, I see you as such a shining example of an Enneagram Three, which you'll
Mhm.
say more about, that has done that integrative work, that has remembered. who
Mm.
God made you to be. So I'd love to, let's go back to the beginning, the starting place of when you first learned about the Enneagram. Tell us just a little bit about how that began.
Yeah, so I had just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I was being given a couple of options: daily steroidal treatment, daily chemotherapy injections for the rest of my life. These were the options, right? And so I took a breath and ended up in a spiritual formation community with the Transforming Center. And so in 2002, I entered a retreat, and the retreat leader, Ruth Barton, said, "I'm inviting you all to a practice tonight of rest." And I really thought, she needed to get a new religion, because I always had these ideas of, you work in the vineyard because the sun is going down, night is coming when nobody can work, right? When you die, you'll hear these words: "Well done, enter your rest." But for now, you work. And at leading with Enneagram Style 3, I truly was a workaholic. Jess, I not only am very high in 3, I'm high in 8. And so, I was hardwired for justice with a dad who marched with Dr. King and who was a Jesuit, which their line is a man and woman for others. So there's this idea that you are here to show up and to do what is yours to do. And so there was a lot of performance orientation that was helpful and unhelpful in the world. And so we kid around, the first 10 years of our church plant, from the time, we were 30 until my diagnosis. I would say, I kind of look back and say it was very Pharaoh like, make bricks with no straw. We can do this, get it done. Nothing is impossible, and all of that kind of thing. So ending up in that retreat space where rest was the invitation was so countercultural for me in that moment. And yet there was something really true about it. And I began to rest. And part of the rest was to rest from my own inner striving,
Mm,
which had a lot of Enneagram 3 and 8 energy.
yeah.
And so learning that I led with 3 and was high in 8 um, gave me an idea of how I had wounded my own soul and wounded
Mm,
the lives of other people in my inability to see that rest was a spiritual practice, that slowing was a spiritual practice. Yeah, so that's kind of the beginning.
wow. Yeah. And it's true for so many that the lack of rest and those kind of the dominant patterns of the 3 and the 8 will kind of burn out your nervous system, that from a trauma informed perspective, people develop chronic illnesses and things like that, you know, I'm so thankful that you were
Mm.
in a spiritual community that helped you see that your soul needed attention.
And
Yeah.
that, yeah, and that my physical body needed attention, right?
Yeah.
So that, again, not bifurcating our body and our spirituality, or our head, our heart, our gut, that this
Mhm.
whole self has an invitation to be well and to
Mm,
discover practices that help us be well.
mm. Great. So, something you shared with me last week that I loved the framing in talking about like Enneagram 3 patterns was sort of the I am and the I am not statements.
Mm,
So,
mhm,
would you like to just, from your perspective and your teaching, share with us like what is an Enneagram 3?
mm. Well, this Enneagram 3, because what it's like to be me, I know how it developed for me. Again, born into a family of 6, the youngest. Our family was kind of a musical. So my dad in addition to his other work, was a jazz musician. So everything was a song in our house. While you were doing dishes, you sang. While you were at the table, you sang. When you were walking down the street, you sang. And so there was, even when we would go places, people would expect our family to sing. And we did, 3-part harmonies and just a lot of, we are here to be seen and shine, right? There wasn't a whole lot of in the background energy with our family. And so I would say that I am light. I was made to shine. I was made to show up. I am a person who can perform at a moment's notice without preparation. This was the energy, that 3 energy, that you are adaptable. You can. If you show up at church and the preacher didn't prepare, you can do it. We kidded around, Dr. Wagner and I, because of course he has this fake it till you make it axiom that he's adopted from other threes. And I said to him one day, I would see it more like spin it to win it. And and like whatever has to be done to make it work. And so yeah, those I ams, I am able, I am capable, I am competent. Um and so, you can then do the opposites. I am not incompetent. I am not incapable. I can, yes, and don't ever say I cannot until I hit the bed at 40 years old with MS and said, I cannot drive my body anymore. So there was a, significant coming to terms with what helped me survive in the first part of life and, be in the family I was in and start the church we started as young pastors, my husband and I, and then to say, okay, and now there might be a more excellent way for this second half of life. And maybe there are some ways I need to ask myself for forgiveness,
Mm, yeah.
and discover ways that I've wounded others and would like to ask them if they could forgive me. And if
Mhm,
there's any repair work that then needs to be done, both in my body and between bodies with
mhm.
other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way that you frame that for you specifically as a 3, but I see it in many threes I know. My oldest son is a 3, and that, spin it to win it is perfect. I mean, that I think lands a little bit better than the fake it till you make it,
Mhm,
especially in his way of being a 3. Um,
mm,
but, yeah, the adaptability for sure. Something I have always noticed is the sheer speed at which threes get stuff done.
mm,
That is something that I think living in that future focused mindset and being aware of goals and achievement, it is that driver, like you said,
mm,
that makes it hard to slow down, hard
mm.
to bring it out of fifth gear and back to maybe 2 or 1, you know. Um Yeah. So, do you have anything, because you talked about repair,
Mm,
um, it just in terms of 3 patterns, just for listeners who maybe are just now learning about what it's like to be a 3,
mm,
any sneaky blind spots or just some places for growth?
mhm. Yeah, well, we talk about self-deceit with the
Mhm,
threes, and so even going back to spin it to win it, when you think about, okay, I can do this, we just got to find a way to make it work, even if it costs me my rest, even if it
mhm,
costs those who work with me their rest. That driver, that inner supervisor that wakes a 3 up in the morning that says, here's the list of things, and you're going to need to do this. And no matter how you're feeling today, no matter what's going on, right? So there can be an inability to see your own inner reality, your own need to be a human being and not a human doing, right? Um, my spiritual director in those very early days said something to me. Don't just do something, Claire, sit there. So instead of don't just sit there, do something for the three, don't just do something, sit there. And
Yeah.
so, that blind spot of the rhythm of work and rest
Mhm.
is necessary for the human soul,
Mhm.
mind, body, and heart. And so not thinking I needed to take a Sabbath, not believing I needed to slow it down. That self-deceit is really significant. And so and the workaholism, of course, many threes name that reality. Um, Many people will name, vanity. Um, and, there's a vanity for not being vain as well. Mm.
Um, yeah, so tell me a little bit more about this harmony approach. In my teachings, I talk about subconscious strategies a lot, with the head, heart, and gut. And then in the welcome prayer by Father Thomas Keating, there's that spiritual aspect of letting go of safety and security, affection and esteem, and power and control. And I love the intersection of these things together with the harmony triad. So tell me a
Mm.
little bit more.
Oh, I am so happy you brought up the welcoming prayer because I actually teach a preamble to the welcoming prayer, which is I accept my need for power and control. I accept my need for security and survival. I accept
Mm,
my need for approval and connection and affection.
mm,
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
that feels nice.
Because what we teach is you have to have a self before you give up a self.
Mm,
And many times we're teaching people to let go of parts of them that they have not yet claimed.
mm,
And so if we are to be offering people a way to be psychologically and spiritually whole and somatically, we're going to let them welcome all that is their agency, is their ability to create safety, is the need for connection, and all of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like all of these things matter in the welcoming. So with the harmony triad, we're actually saying, welcome back, welcome, welcome, welcome these needs because they are true, they are God given, they are not bad, they are not unholy. When they become unhelpful or unholy, like rupturing yourself, right, is when we become addicted to power and control or approval and connection or safety and security.
mhm,
So the reason that harmony means what it does to me, my first invitation to look at it was by Dr. David Daniels. And of course, I took from him when he came to Loyola University. And he put up a harmony triad diagram at the very end of this whole thing on conflict management and Enneagram styles. So he and Kurt Mitchka taught that together. And he put up the three triangles and he said, you're going to be seeing more. Now, this is in 2009. You're going to be seeing more on this. But as soon as he put it up, my own law of three Trinitarian faith just showed up for me. And so I went up to him afterward and I just said, okay, have you written a book on this? He said, no, but I do have an article. so, so I read his article and that's when I wrote Motions of the Soul, was within that time frame, and started to see that there was a wholeness in welcoming these energies that are so important for human survival, so important for human flourishing, for goodness
mhm.
sake, right? And then looking at maybe what some of the spiritual teachers may have taught us that have ruptured us. Faith of origin, family of origin, We have received many times a flawed, and of course we have, a flawed image of God, a flawed image of self, and a flawed image of the other. How could we learn anything else? There's just flaw. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having said that, it got me to just wonder if each style remembered themselves, had heart and gut,
Mhm.
how it might look in each style. So that's when I wrote Motions of the Soul, and Dr. Wagner said, I want you to present that at the IEA conference in 2012. He had me present it at Loyola first, a little bit before that. And then, and just kind of took off to say, what if we remembered and whatever rupture was there, whatever attachment patterns kept us from allowing ourselves to receive all of us, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, how might we show up harmonized? And of course, I can't help it. I was brought up in a musical. So, how can we show up harmonized where it's not, as we say, if you're just living by your own style, it's like bonk, 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 playing one string of an instrument, bonk, bonk, bonk. But when you use a chord, I can't
Yeah.
harmonize with myself, so you have to help, Jess. But all three centers of intelligence create an open and expansive soul that
Yeah.
allows us to be centered in a way where we're able to access the gifts that
Mm.
are ours by our own inherent greatness,
Mhm.
given to us, in my faith tradition before the foundations of the world, that God
Mhm.
spoke over you a word, that you literally are a word of God, the book of Ephesians
Mm.
says, the eklectos, and this wonderful spoken forth. And can you imagine what the word was that God said about Jess? Like, what did God say about Jess before the foundations of the world? As the
Mhm.
Sufis would say it, what was your face before your parents met? Right?
Yeah.
And so helping us remember harmony is just a wonderful model to help with that.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about what you shared with us about, the Father, the Son, and the
Mm,
Spirit, and how
mm,
that
mm.
matches up with the Harmony Triad?
Yeah, well, if I had my PowerPoint up, I'd bring up Rublev's icon and this beautiful picture of the Trinity that Rublev gave us as a window to see God. And it's beautiful because the posture is they're each leaning into one another.
Mm.
And I call that one defers, one prefers, and one refers. And that in the Trinitarian faith, we see how Father, Son, and Spirit, they refer, prefer, and defer. The Son says, I don't do anything unless I see the Father do it. The Father says, this is my Son, listen to him. Jesus says, I gotta go, but I'm gonna leave you with the Spirit, and you need the Spirit more than you need me. And so
Mhm.
there's this non-egoic welcoming of the three centers of intelligence with God. Maybe we name the Father as the one who teaches, the Son as the Sacred Heart of
Mm.
Jesus who reaches out with compassion, and the gut, the Holy Spirit who lives in these temples not made with human hands.
Yeah.
And so there's a lovely way to just open up to God. And even when we use Trinitarian language, if you're a person who uh, honors the sacred text of the scriptures, Old and New Covenant, what you discover is there are hundreds of names to describe God because no one name can contain God, right? So
Mhm.
whether you're talking Rose of Sharon or Lion of Judah, it's different energies of God that make up God, who is, capital M mystery within us by God's own Spirit and beyond us in ways that, we're still discovering the universe out there and can't
Yeah.
contain it. So
Yeah.
the Trinitarian faith is another lovely icon, a gateway to look through as a window to see
Mhm.
parts of what should just be, awe for us.
Mhm.
Um, awe and wonder, like we are with a brand new baby when they're hot from the hand of God. When we
Mhm.
look at them and say, what?
Yeah.
Who is this little human? Who
Yeah.
is this little human? What all is here in this little person that I can't even imagine, awaits them? What is in them? What by God's own design, what the family of origin and faith and origin will do to mess us up, and then what we do with our own free will, with, the
Yeah.
nature, the nurture stuff. So,
Yeah. And that was something I really loved is how you talked about one third nature, one third
mm,
nurture, and one third free will, which is beautiful because we know that it all is part of who we become,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
Father Rohr. And he doesn't name it as an exact equation, but it's good
Yeah.
enough, right?
Right.
Again, another way, third nature, third nurture, third free will could be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and then to the beautiful way, which again is just such a simple way to share with somebody. When you're in your false self, you're on your edge.
Mm,
You're on the point of that triangle. So like as a 3, you're on the edge of the 3, or like if you're leaning into the 6, it's the
mhm,
edge of the 6 or the edge of the 9, but yet the goal is harmony.
mm,
Um,
mm,
using, plucking different strings when you need them, but to create that beautiful harmony and presence.
mm,
So that open, expansive space in the center, like you talked about, it just provides a great visualization for um, head, heart, gut, all 3 numbers in your harmony triad, and what it looks like to become present and integrated, right? Yeah, whole.
I think you're gonna get your certification, Jess. I'm here. You have integrated some things in just this last week that
Mm,
I have a lot of consolation around how you are receiving grace from the harmony model.
yeah, yeah. I absolutely love the way it's presented. It feels very fluid, and it reminds me of something else you've taught us that's also in your book, in the spiritual rhythms for the Enneagram, the FLOW acronym. Can you say
Uh,
more about that?
yeah. Free, loving, open, and welcoming reality as it is.
Mm,
That when we're in flow, when we actually notice that we're not stuck in either head, heart, or gut, in the automatic patterns of that edgy self, as we like to say, on around the circle, that I know when I'm on my edge, right? I know when I'm beside myself. I'm saying, what the world, right? So that beautiful flow is when we're accessing the 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 harmony, because in the center of that harmony is the flow of all the virtues. So we're not just saying you only have grace from your 3 centers. No, when you're centered, when you're present to God, when you're present to your own soul, when you're present to the other, right?
mm,
Again, another Trinitarian: love God, love self as you love your neighbor,
mhm,
right? Another Trinitarian flow. And so, this beautiful idea that when we are in flow, we are present, we are centered, we are not on our edge, we are not beside ourselves, and we have the grace to not only have regulated presence within us, but between us. That
mhm,
kind of flow, when we're free, when we're loving and open and welcoming God and reality as it is, where I don't, I don't uh, name you as the other, but I'm in this flow place where I can, be free to love you,
mm,
to be open, to welcome, no matter who it is, no matter who is activating or triggering you, to be present with them so that between
yeah.
there is flow.
Mm. Yeah, I can think of the most important relationship, in your and my life is probably our spouse, right?
Mm.
And so that flow, that openness, Tell me a little bit more about if you're open to sharing your husband's number um, and what the harmony is like between the 3 and the 9, and
Mm.
then you guys both go to the 6. Um, and yeah, just share some of the ways you shine together, and then maybe
Mm.
some of the challenges or the stuck points.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's start with inherent greatness first, right?
Hmm.
So the 9 is true in me, and developing that person who is able to live and let live, to go with the flow,
Hmm.
who's able to say, que sera, sera, whatever will be, and he says that in such a true way. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. It's fine. It's going to be fine. And how about we just take a nap instead of go shovel the driveway, even though there's 8 inches of snow on the driveway? How about we hibernate like bears and go take a nap, which we did yesterday? Yeah, the grace of that. And then of course the grace that I have with the 3, that I say, "Oh, I know. I see that in you. You are capable. And then he'll say, "Yes, of course," as he told us, "I was the captain of the basketball team. I was the captain of the baseball team." And out in his young life, he was always in charge. And of course, then you grow into your adult life, and both of us have served on boards and led projects. We help orchestrate another way in justice work and mercy work. We do that. And the 6 is always there to ask us these clarifying questions. Is this yours to do right now?
Mm,
Are you overdoing it? Are you underdoing it? Is this your place to be seen and shine? Is this your place to be sacred backdrop? Like the great questions that a 6 asks of a 3 and
yeah.
a 9.
Hmm.
And so
Right.
that's beautiful. And then if we're on our edge, if we're unconscious, if we're not paying attention, I'll say to Scott, if you say fine, I hear the F word. That is my F word. When you say it's going to be fine, how is it going to be fine? Tell me what we're going to do to make it fine. How are you going to show up to make it fine? When is it going to be fine? Do you have a deadline?
Mm,
Right? And
yeah.
then in Scott's, his own false self, automatic response, when he's not conscious, he might get stubborn and dig down and in. And the more I say, when is it going to be done? He will make it an even longer time away in the very long away future, right? Uh,
The autonomy of the 9.
as he said, I have energy. It's potential energy. So, you've got
Mm,
all of that we could actually, in our younger years, really think the other one was really trying to tick us off,
yeah,
like purposefully trying to make our life harder,
yeah.
you know? And I would go assertive, and he would go up passive aggressive. But having the language and having the reality, even when that shows up, if you're living with integrity, you're actually saying, oh, wait a minute. I'm on my edge right now. Give me a minute to breathe. Let me remember myself, and I'll get back with you in just a moment on that. You know?
Yeah, and it's so interesting as we, hopefully are growing in Christ likeness and in developing and becoming more mature and aware and awake and all these words that just demonstrate you not being so stuck in your strategies that you
Mm,
once had to use maybe,
mm,
but now you don't need anymore. I think about John Gottman and some of his research around gridlock issues in marriage.
yes.
And I think the Enneagram really helps to inform where we get stuck in gridlock and where we
Mhm,
want to prove that our way of seeing things is right and the
mm,
other person's wrong. And honestly, like you said, that openness
mm,
to be curious at the other person's perspective, to
mm,
see where they can teach you, to see where you can grow in that harmony really becoming a little bit more like all nine types,
Mm, mm,
is maturity. It is safety and security and just being in that flow. So I love the description of like, okay, yes, we're all human. We all kind of go to that false self edge. And, I mean, me and my four, it's emotionality and drama. And, it can really become very much about my experience of worth and value and all these things. But when we see through the other person's perspective, and like you said, when you look into the face of
mm,
another person, and you shared during the training the faces
mm,
practice of looking through, I mean, the way I understood it was looking through the other's numbers. It grows that compassion
mm,
and curiosity for how do they see the world?
mm.
What is it like to be you? Things like that. So it's perfect for marriage work and relationship work.
Yeah. Yeah, Jess, you're brilliant. You are incorporating all of the things you already know, whether it's from Gottman or it's from, your work with cancer survivors or attachment patterns. You're integrating beautifully. You can see the synchronicity, can't you? Of
Mm,
how harmony can fit in these
yeah,
ways, how, the flow can happen.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Well
Mm.
done.
Oh, you're too kind. It just feels right. It feels good.
Mm, mm,
So let's talk a little bit about attachment. So you're probably familiar with the different ways of maybe showing up insecure in relationships and how that's tied to your earliest relationships, family of origin. For you as a three, though, how would you say, is there a temptation to lean more anxious or
mm,
avoidant or
mhm.
fearful?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we do teach attachment all throughout our 2 year school. So, Dr. Shar Dillon is our resident psychologist and has studied with Diane Poole Heller for many, many years. And so when we look at attachment patterns and Enneagram styles, family of origin, faith of origin, um, issues. Okay. So in my early years, I had a secure attachment with my dad. And I had, you call it dismissive, some call it ambivalent, however we'd like to name it. But I was very, very unemotional with my mom. And she was not well for the first 20 years of my life. So there wasn't a whole lot of attachment. And the attachment that was there really was just, okay, this is not my person. And what do I have to do to actually make her love me?
Mm,
Because not realizing when your parent or your primary caregiver is ill and can't give you what they can't give you at the time, there were a lot of performance things that, I attempted to find favor with her. And yet there was the, kind of dismissing emotion there because it was not going to be reciprocated in the way that I experienced it with my dad. So, as Dr. Dillon would always say, all you need is one good enough parent, you know, and not everyone has that grace. And so, what we love about attachment theory is that you can earn secure attachment later in life. Thanks be to God,
mhm.
right? That
Yes. Amen.
there is a way to earn a secure attachment.
Mm,
But there are people that can activate that part of me to just be unemotional or go superficial, which is my least favorite thing on the planet. The virtue of the three is truth and authenticity. And I am most myself when I'm living from a gut
yeah.
art headspace with somebody. But I can feel that with particular styles. I won't tell you what they are right now, but I can tell that that's being activated in me and that I
Mm,
want to close off and dismiss my own feelings or theirs, dismiss my own, desire for intimacy or their desire, for intimacy that I can't quite relate to.
mm,
So knowing attachment is such a gift with with the Enneagram, and then
Mhm.
recognizing that secure attachment is here, and not to lay
Mhm.
everything on the harmony triad, but I'm just saying, when you're in harmony, when you're open head, heart, and body, and you're not stuck, there's a way to say, oh, that's happening right now. And now I have
Yes.
another choice to show up and to get into flow, free, loving, open, welcoming reality as it is. This person maybe can't be for me or to me or with me in a way that feels best. And I accept reality as it is, and I can belong to myself, even if I cannot belong to this other person in full.
Mhm. Yeah. That really truly is that's how I've taught it, is that secure attachment is
Mhm.
getting a balance of within your Enneagram numbers and, you know, and being able to give care, receive care,
Mhm.
negotiate needs, and use your voice when necessary in a healthy, secure way.
Mhm.
Um, and knowing and believing you're loved. I think
Yeah.
that's the heart of all of it.
Come on. That is the
Yeah.
heart of it all. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, like you said, when you have a secure parent that can do the nurturing
Mhm.
and the attunement
Mm.
and show up for you, even if one of your other parents was not able to attune in all the ways that you needed, that gives you that base, that secure base for life,
Mm.
and any insecure tendencies can be healed up,
Mm. Mm.
right? Okay, so your approach to spiritual direction and Enneagram education is unique with your Harmony Triad application, which integrates the Enneagram and the wisdom of Saint Ignatius, whom I love. Tell us more about how you've infused your writing and your
Mm.
teaching with the exercises of Saint Ignatius.
Mhm. Well, so Iggy, as we lovingly refer to him, is a flawed human, as we all are. And so there are parts of Ignatian spirituality that I don't work with, that others may feel more inclined. But the way that I was informed by my dad, who went to Jesuit university and was significantly a man for others, thinking faith, some call it. All right. Well, Ignatius developed the spiritual exercises. And as you heard my story in class about when my dad said I was an angel, and I said, you forget all the bad things I did. And he said, those were
Yeah.
only exercises. And so when I think of the spiritual exercises, I think of it through the voice of my dad, who was basically saying, whether you did it right or you did it wrong, whether you considered yourself good or you considered yourself naughty at the time, those were only exercises. You were discovering the motions of your soul. And so, when I wrote Motions of the Soul and I began to work with the work of consolation and desolation, where you can notice in your own interior world, mind, heart, body, thinking, feeling, doing, head, heart, gut, the whole thing, where you can start to say, I noticed where I was moving toward faith, toward hope, toward love.
Hmm.
I noticed when I was moving away from love,
Yeah.
from faith, from hope. And you can say, oh, so what is that about? And what can I learn from that? And so Ignatius, while he was not a trauma informed guide necessarily. Oh, he certainly was. Because teaching us to pay attention to the centers of intelligence in discernment, that is the capstone project of the book, Motions of the Soul and the Training, is learning to access from your own particular Enneagram harmony what each of these centers offers you in noticing, am I moving toward faith, hope, love, goodness,
Hmm.
mercy, I name it, wisdom, loyalty, whatever you want to say. Okay. Or am I moving away? And so that regular kind of examen, which is one of the things that we teach, is a daily examen to just notice the motions of your own soul. And if it's practiced daily, then you'll start to notice it in the board meeting. Oh, wait a minute, I'm moving away right now, right? You'll notice at Walmart behind the person, yeah, I am moving away from love at this very moment, and I'm entering into fill in the blank. So when we create new neural pathways through the examen, we're actually giving ourselves access to in the moment kinds of noticing so that we can discern and are able to then live a flourishing experience, head, heart, and body. So that's kind of, as you know, that's a whole day in the training.
Yeah,
So how'd
right.
I do in 2 seconds there?
I think it is a fantastic overview of
Mm,
how you've taken the good bits of Ignatian exercises and fit it within your calling, your gifting, your beautiful imagination for how it works with the harmony triads. So I loved that day and the discernment exercises and being able to trace with my finger this labyrinth of my triangle between, for me, the 4, the 1, and the 7. And just as I'm writing and learning to use the exercises in a specific discernment process, that book is a great guide. So anybody listening, if you're like, "Oh, I love what she's talking about here," the book Motions of the Soul by Clare Loughrige. Sure.
Yeah. So even with the Harmony Triads that I am very, the training program that's accredited is this. As you saw, I honor all of my teachers that have taught me in business and psychology, use subtypes, use arrows and wings, that all of that matters. And as George Bach says, all models are wrong, but some are useful. My husband would say, all models are incomplete because he's a 9. He's going to adapt it. All models are incomplete, but some are helpful in the work of spiritual transformation. And
Mhm.
so we do highlight other teachers, the way they teach the Enneagram, while we lay the Enneagram Harmony model as,
Mhm.
the motions of our soul. All respect to the other teachers.
Absolutely. And you did share, which I will also affirm, is that the Enneagram as a tool can be used in business and as a diagnostic approach in therapy and counseling. And then I use it in relationship type coaching and but when you're talking spiritual transformation, what you're sharing is that the harmony approach is about development and that peaceful flow between. I would love to ask you, in your personal life, what's the single most important thing you're practicing to bring about spiritual transformation?
Well, besides the examen, besides, practicing flow, besides heart math, besides somatic experiencing, besides biospiritual focusing, all of those really important parts. It's Sabbath. It's
Mm,
every week
yeah.
we turn off for a full 24 hours with no ability for anyone to contact us. And so that we can recreate and remember ourselves and notice our belovedness. So Sabbath can be really countercultural for threes. Some threes think they're practicing Sabbath, but they're catching up on their emails, or they might be doing other various tasks and work. But for me, Sabbath being unreachable for 24 hours, one of the things about solitude is that it's not that you're alone, but that you're alone with God, that there are ways that only without noise we can actually hear the voice that is most true.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, it makes me think too about there's a book I recently read by Henry Nouwen called Reaching Out.
Oh, yeah.
And have you read that one?
Hmm.
Yeah. And the first movement he talks about is from loneliness to solitude, which I really needed to kind of soak in that truth of,
Mm.
you're not alone.
Mm.
Like, you're with God.
Mhm.
And solitude in Sabbath, as you're describing from a three's perspective, is that slowing down and being with God. You named so many amazing spiritual practices that involve some level of work, you know? And so those are all good. Like, you don't
Mhm.
avoid doing the work
Mm.
of discovering and leaning in and things like that. But what you've seen is the most
Mm.
transforming practice for you right now as a three is Sabbath. Okay, Claire. So before we go, I would love for you to share with our audience where they can find all of your amazing resources, trainings, um, all the wonderful things that you have to offer, because you're just such
Mm.
a wise teacher. Can you tell us where they can get that?
Yeah, so I think you're going to post the links.
Uh-huh.
And so you can go to clareloughrige.com, which is also known as scottandclareloughrige.org, which is also Crossroads Soul Resources, right?
Yeah.
And we have an upcoming Motions of the Soul training, a 4-day intensive, what you just went through in Chicagoland, April 14 through 17. And it's also online, as you took the online experience. How was the online experience?
It was really wonderful. You did a fantastic job of including everyone online, so we did not feel like we were on
Mm.
the outside of the live, in-person group. It was all live, but yeah, I really
Yeah.
liked the care and attention given
Mm.
to the online portion.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We have a great team that helps with dyads and triads and breakouts and large groups. So online and in person, neither is inferior. So April 14 through 17. And then we actually are starting our summer semester for the School of Spiritual Direction. And that is May through July with August off and then back in school for this 2-year cohort, which is a certification in the art and practice of spiritual direction with an Enneagram Harmony Trinitarian trauma focused model. And so we'd love for people to check that out. If they feel like they have a charism, that people come and ask you questions and you don't want to tell them what to do and you don't want to pathologize them or diagnose them, but you're hoping to be a spiritual companion for people on the way to listen to the motions of their soul and help them discover what God is saying.
Mhm.
That is a beautiful way to do it for 2 years or just the 4 days with Motions of the Soul training. And then, of course, our books are on Amazon. So if you look up Motions of the Soul, Clare Loughrige, Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram, the Calhouns and Lougriges, EPS, Enneagram Personality Styles is our intro book. That is there as well. And on March the 10th, InterVarsity Press is releasing our new Audible version of Spiritual Rhythms for the
Ooh,
Enneagram. So all of the Audible folks will be happy.
yes.
And so we're grateful IVP wanted to do this March 10th.
I am an Audible girl. I
Mm.
love listening. Yeah. So exciting. So many great resources, and I love what you're doing. Well, thank you again, Claire, for being here. And I close every show with a blessing. So may you
Mhm.
be open and aware to everything that comes to you today, welcoming it all for your transformation.
Mm. And again, I'm going to breathe that in and say thank you. Thank you, Jess, for your hospitality, for your invitation, and for the really important presence you're bringing to the world and the work that flows from the kind of presence that you have. So
Mm.
glad to know you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Transforming Us podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation and that you found it helpful. If you loved what you heard, we would really appreciate if you would take a moment and leave us a 5-star review and rating. Your support helps us reach more listeners like you.
And also don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more relationship content. Then, if you're looking to take your growth to the next level, check out our coaching services and groups at transformingus.org.
We're here to help you transform your patterns and enjoy more secure relationships.
Until next time, in the words of Raoul Shane, you do not need to do big things. Just do small things in a big way. Then transformation will follow you.